all the animals live when they're fattened up, and they just live on grains. They have no shade, usually they have no grass, they have to be given hormones and antibiotics, because this is not how they're meant to live. And this is confinement chickens. These are meat chickens. At least they're not the egg chickens, which are then in cages, but this is a pretty horrible way to live. And this is where all the chickens and all the pork that you see, look at these poor little piggies. Pigs are such intelligent, happy creatures when they're outside. Now, this is organic farming. There's people here. There's biodiversity. This is what cows are meant to do. They eat grass. We eat grass secondhand from them because all the good basic plant omega-3s are actually in the grasses. The omega-6s are in the grains. So when the cow can digest the cellulose, which we can't, and because they have a rumen, which is a special fermentation tank in their guts, they're able to make out of the plant omega-3s, EPA and DHA, which are the long-chain fatty acids, which are the famous omega-3s. But look how happy they look. This is what they're meant to do. Here's some free-range chickens. This is at Joel Salatin's farm. You might have read about him in last weekend's Good Weekend. Happy chooks. Tim and I have been to his farm. This happens to be in Virginia. And this eggmobile follows around the cattle. The cattle are being rotated. So they rush to the cow pats, the fresh cow pats, and they scratch in them, they sanitise the paddocks, they eat the worm larvae, they scratch the manure in, and they produce wonderful, wonderful eggs, which stand up like pert breasts, according to Joel. Now, there is an alternative, again, for pigs. Look at these little piggies expressing their pigginess. They're having a lovely time. And there are quite a few free-range pork producers now in Australia, but you have to be really careful of which ones are actually truly free-range, or whether they're just cooped up in not quite so small cages. This is the way it's nice to shop. This is how most people shop in Paris. You know, the markets come to town every day, and that's where people go and buy their foods. They buy them from people. They don't go to supermarkets. Only it's changing a little bit now, but I lived in Paris for 2 years, and you went to supermarkets to buy tissues and toilet paper and things like that. And or you can go to a butcher like this who specialises in grass-fed. Where are you, Dom? He's up the back there. He's the butcher that was referred to earlier. And he's got a wonderful butchery in Vaucluse called the Grub, the Grassroots Urban Butchery, with his wife there. So why is it so important to choose grass-fed? As I said, humans can't eat grass, but the meat we eat should come from animals that do. And taking this step may matter more for the environment and your health than any other food decision you make. Because animals that are grass-fed their entire life are healthier and their meat is safer for you. In America, they have a huge problem with E. coli. I don't know I saw a movie once of minced meat coming from feedlots. A whole room full of disgusting minced meat, which is then irradiated. It's all mixed up together. And the incidence of E. coli from feedlot beef is actually very high in America, and a lot of people get sick from it. We've been through the grass-fed fat, and the thing is that to get these goodies, like, have you heard of conjugated linoleic acid, CLA, which is also very anti-cancer, very healthy, vitamin A, vitamin E, vitamin D in lard and in eggs from animals that have been out in the sun. So pigs that have been out in the sun have vitamin D in their fat. But you must eat the fat. There's no good thinking that you'll get the omega-3s if you cut all the fat off. You've got to eat the chop with the fat on it. And this is a graph of what happens to the omega fatty acids in the feedlot, the DHA and the EPA. And it does seem cheaper. Grass-fed is a little bit more expensive, but when you add in the invisible costs of antibiotics and environmental degradation, and plus it takes a lot of fossil fuel to grow the grain to feed the animals. So pastured animals lead really happy natural lives. This happens to be on our little farm. And they look very happy. There's our garlic patch in the corner. We let the cows into the yard so they'd mow it. And perennial grasses are much better for the soil. Rob explained about the mycorrhizal fungi, and what you need to know is that when, I'll come to that in a minute, but properly managed grazing actually regenerates the land and the soil. And the best system I know of for getting these results is holistic management, which Bruce Ward taught. There was a fellow called Alan Savory who wrote the book Holistic Management, a new framework for decision making. And once again, I won't go into it now, but I'd urge you to Google some of Alan's talks, because he's a guy that has ideas that we can save the world, and I'll show you how. This is a picture of animals in Africa, huge herds. People say that, animals, cattle are bad for the environment. What about the methane? They degrade the land. Well, David Mason-Jones's book, Should Meat Be on the Menu, really completely debunks the whole methane thing. It's part of a cycle. Methane goes up, the cattle chew their cud, it creates methane, which then goes up and eventually, through various processes, becomes carbon dioxide, which then is ready to photosynthesize again, is absorbed by the grasses and eaten by the cows. So you have a complete cycle. There's no more or less methane in the world because of cattle. We've always had millions and millions of herbivores on the land. Now, in places like Africa, we had huge herds, but only a few of them, and they were all bunched together because of lions and predators. So being on the outside of a herd is not a good idea. So they're all bunched together. They're all disturbing the ground with their hooves. They're pooing and weeing, which is adding fertility to the soil. And then they move off. And then the land is rested until they come back again. You've probably all read about the big migrations. That is the way the fertility is maintained in the great grasslands of the world, and how it used to be with the American prairies with the bison and buffalo.